Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Spirit Chats with Kat. You can now listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, SoundCloud, Podchaser, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. So, if you remember on the last episode, I was sharing with you some experiences that I had once I became a nurse and talking about how some of them paralleled my own experience, and it was basically affirmation for me that my experience was not a one-off, that it happens to more people than just myself. Now on this episode, we're going to move away from my work life and we're going more to my home life. We're going to get more into what happens to me when I'm at home. Because I always have things happen when I'm at home. It's pretty much nonstop. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on just the things that happen to me here at this location. But I probably won't. I'll just share with you what I've experienced to date. And it's not everything, but it's the ones that I felt were the most impactful, the experiences that were most impactful to me that I want to share with you. So, just a little background on the place that we are in now. We still are in the South, and we live in a small but growing quickly town here in the South. And this kicks off when we are getting ready to move from one small town in this area into this small town and this particular apartment that we took possession of. So, this place it's really nice. It's really well kept. It's fairly new. It's my understanding it's been within the last 5 years that this place was built. And so when I moved here, I really wasn't expecting to have experiences. I mean, I've had experiences at other places, but I certainly wasn't expecting to have everything happen here that has happened. Let's start out when we first came to do the walkthrough. We had just gotten the keys, hadn't moved anything in yet. We came after work, my husband and myself, to do the walkthrough and make sure everything was okay. It was the first time that he had been in one of these units, so he was really checking it out, opening all the doors and looking in the closets and things like that. So we walked into the kitchen, and we have a very small pantry closet in our kitchen, and he went to that door and opened it up, and I'm right there with him. We're side by side exploring this place, and as soon as he opened it up, he ducked his head like something flew out at him. And I turned real quick and looked at him and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No." And I immediately looked around to see, to look for a bug or something like that. And I said, "What was it?" And I said, "Was it a bug?" And he said, "I don't know. Something flew out at me. I thought it was going to hit me in the face." And, I just kind of blew it off. I was like, okay, well, there must have been a moth in there that flew really quickly. I mean, it had to go very quickly from the time that he ducked to the time that I was looking for it. That sucker had to move fast because I did not see a bug anywhere. So at that point, I just kind of was like, you know me. I'm going to blow it off first. So I blew it off and, didn't think anything of it because, again, I really was not expecting any experiences here because the place was so new. And as far as I know, it's built on pasture land, but who knows? Who knows what's underneath us at any given time? This could have been a whole settlement. I have no clue. But that was just my assumption, Oh, it's a new place. It's built not too far from the interstate. It's on pasture land. There's nothing. We're not going to have any experiences here. So, fast forward to about 2 weeks later, and we had finally gotten everything moved in, and our bed was set up and everything. So, this was the first night that we were spending the night in our new place. So we turned off the lights and settled down in bed, and we were just chit-chatting, as we do on a nightly basis most nights before we fall asleep. And no sooner did we close our eyes and start to settle down than I heard a bang, bang, bang in the kitchen. And, I looked at my husband and I was like, what is that? Did you hear that? And he said, yeah, I did hear that. And we just both lay there listening. And then the next thing we heard was the silverware drawer open and close. And you know how your silverware drawer sounds when it opens. You hear all the rattling of the silverware, and when you close it as well. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and then we heard a door open and close out here in the kitchen. Well, as you know by now, that's where I do my podcast. It's in my kitchen. So, like I said, I'm just a regular person out here recording a podcast. So I love you guys so much for giving me the time of day. But anyway, so, after we heard the door open and close, he jumped up out of bed, grabbed his gun, and went out into the kitchen. And completely expected to find someone messing around in our kitchen. And he turned on all the lights, and he opened all the closet doors, and was looking everywhere for whoever we had just heard opening the cabinet doors and opening the silverware drawer and opening a door somewhere out here. To me, it sounded like it was our front door. But see, my mind tells me there's no way because the front door was locked, so it must have been one of the, we have a coat closet, a coat closet out here and stuff. Maybe it was one of the doors on there, and it just sounded like the front door. But my gut tells me I heard the front door open and close. So, needless to say, he didn't find anyone, and he just came back to bed, really confused, because he's not, he's more, until he met me, he really didn't acknowledge experiences that he would have. He had some experiences, but, he really didn't acknowledge them because he was told they couldn't be happening. So when he came back to the bedroom, he was just really confused, trying to work his way through it and trying to figure out exactly what had just happened. Because We had both heard those things happening. And in his mind, at that point, there was no possible way they could be. So, you know, we just talked a little bit about it. And I asked him, do you think we have spirits here? And he just looked at me and he said, I don't know. I don't know what that was. And I said, okay, well, let's hope that doesn't happen again. So the next night, again, we laid down in bed and we're just about to fall asleep. And again, heard bam, 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 bam in the kitchen, as if someone was trying to open a cabinet door. And he looked at me and I looked at him and I said, baby, did you hear that? It's happening again. And he said, no, it's the cats. We've all been there, right, you guys? We have all been right where he was at that moment. It's called denial, right? We've all been trying to convince ourselves that what is happening isn't really happening. Like, what is happening? What is happening right now? So, poor guy. So I looked, I said, oh, okay, and I popped my head up and I looked for the cats and I looked for the dog, and nope, everybody was in the room. And I said, it can't be the animals, they're all in the room. And he was like, well, maybe one of them was just out there and they just came in and jumped on the bed. And I said, no, I've been awake this whole time. They've been on the bed since we came and got in bed. And then a few minutes later, bam, 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 in the kitchen. The cabinet door again. So again, he jumps up and comes out here and checks the place out, and nothing. There is no one anywhere out here. So, you know, we really didn't talk much about it because I kind of got a clue as to where this sweet guy's mindset was, and it definitely wasn't with acknowledging that we have spirits in our home. So we really didn't talk about it after that, you know. And we really didn't have that much activity out in the kitchen after that either. So fast forward to a month later, and we've pretty much settled in, and, you know, things have calmed down around the place and haven't had activity much at all. And I'm at home by myself one day, and I'm just messing around. And at that point in time, we didn't have living room furniture. My husband is a big guy, and the furniture that I had, I bought when I was single, and I'm a very small person, so you know, once we moved into a different place, I really didn't want him to have to suffer on my doll furniture anymore. So we didn't even bring it with us. So we didn't have any living room furniture. And I'm sort of a nosy Nelly. I want to know what's going on. You know, I'll talk about stuff with my husband, but I don't talk to anyone else about things that I see, but I want to know what's going on, you know. So I hear a bunch of noises out in the parking lot, and we had just moved in here, and I didn't know who lived where and drove what and that kind of thing, because I'd been working quite a bit, and my schedule finally eased up so I could take it a little easier, and I was home. And so I heard voices and I heard car doors opening and closing, and nosy little me, I jump up and I run out into the living room to get a peek at what's going on. And we have these big, almost floor to ceiling windows in our living room. And so I didn't want to get right up on them because I didn't want whoever was down there to see my nosy self, watching whatever they were doing out there, which clearly it's none of my business, but that didn't concern me much. So I go into the middle of the living room, and I have to stand on my tippy toes to look out and see whatever it is that's happening down below me. And it's just, people going about their business. And as soon as I see, oh, okay, so that person drives that car and that person drives that car, and I'm making mental notes because, again, my detective brain as well. I've always found it useful to know what vehicles certain people drive so that when new vehicles just show up in the parking lot, I know to keep my eye on them. So I just find it good to keep track of what my neighbors drive. Especially, in this day and age, there are so many cars being stolen too, so that if you see somebody driving a vehicle that doesn't belong to them, you can go to your neighbor right away and say, hey, I just saw somebody driving your car out of here. You know what I mean? We don't live in a place like that, but I've trained myself to do that because I like to live with, a whole binder full of what to do just in cases in my brain. So I'm looking out in the parking lot, and I'm on my tippy toes. And there's nothing going on, so I turn around real quick, and behind me, I see a gentleman standing on his tippy toes, craning his neck out into the parking lot, like looking over my shoulder. He's looking over my shoulder to see what it is that I'm looking at. And he looked like he was in his... And I'm not very good with age. I think I have offended people before by guessing their age, and I guessed way older than they actually were. So, but this gentleman, and if he's here listening, I hope he'll forgive me. He looked like he was in his late 50s. He was bald, and he had a white beard, and I don't think he was bald. I think he shaved his head, like just shaved to the skin. And he had a white beard on, and he had jean shorts and a polo shirt on, and white tennis shoes. And when I turned around and saw him, I was startled because I thought, for a split second, how did this person get in here? I'm by myself, And then I realized, no, you lock the door all the time. That door is locked. This person did not get in here, especially when he just disappeared when I turned around. Turned around, looked at him, got a great view of him, and then the minute that his eyes locked with mine and he knew I could see him, he disappeared completely. But this is another situation where I felt the energy was not unkind. I felt like this was a kind human being. And he was just, for whatever reason, I I guess I was the most interesting thing at that moment, and he wanted to know what it was that I was craning my neck at, you know, and he was showing some solidarity, coming out there craning his neck with me so that we could see what we could see together, you know. So I just got a really good, a kind vibe from him. And I thought, oh, if this is who we're sharing our apartment with, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. This is a good guy. So, you know, after that, I didn't have an issue. Like, and I never saw him again. But I would feel things occasionally, you know, that I thought might be him, because he was the first spirit I had seen since we moved in. So, you know, I didn't have an issue with him being here. And for a little bit, I felt like he was protection for me, like that he would watch out for me. You know, he's going to have my back. I haven't felt him for a while now, though, now that I think about it. So I'm guessing that he got to move on, because I haven't seen him or felt him for quite some time. So hopefully he went ahead and moved on, because it's such a great place, and you know, everyone deserves that kind of love. Everyone deserves that kind of love, because we all start out with loving hearts. So, you know, there in this small town, there is a very large cemetery. And there is a street that cuts through the cemetery. It's one of the main thoroughfares to get from one side of the town to the other. And it goes right in the middle of the cemetery. And every day for over a year, I think it was 13 months, I had to drive through the cemetery to get to and from work. And when I first started driving through it, you know, I felt like, oh, my peeps, what's up, y'all? You know, that's how I felt. And I would say to everybody as I went through, you know, I'd say, good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. And as I came home, I would say, hey, everybody, I hope you had a good day. Because the reality of it is that sometimes when we choose not to go on to that other place, we choose to stay with our body. And I don't know if that's because we're hoping that we can get back into it, or just because we don't know what else to do at that point. You know, we don't know where to go and what to do. And, you know, you will find spirits in cemeteries. You will find quite a few of them in cemeteries. So, you know, I always would just acknowledge. I would acknowledge everyone when I would come and go. And at first I had to set ground rules, because I would have so many of them coming at me, it sounded like a deafening noise. The best way that I can describe it is, if you stand by Niagara Falls and it's just nothing but loud white noise, that is what massive amounts of spirits coming to talk to me sounds like. So it feels really overwhelming, and it feels like my like my head could pop, you know? So that's one of the reasons that I don't feel comfortable considering mediumship, because it's just so much, so much. And that's how it felt when I drove through the cemetery at first. So when it was so deafening, it was so loud, it was deafening, I just had to say, stop, 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 stop. I cannot handle everybody talking at one time, and you cannot get up on me like that. You know, I had to set ground rules with them, and I had to tell them, I'm not here to help you with unfinished business. That's not my mission, I guess you could say. So, you know, I always feel bad every time I say that too. But I cannot do unfinished business for people, you know, for those that have passed on. I don't feel like that's what I'm called here to do, nor do I feel like emotionally I could handle it, because I really do want the best for every human being out there, and to be constantly faced with the reality of people that don't want to hear what I'm trying to tell them. I think that would just hurt too much. I think it would hurt too much. I would just feel like I had let those of us that have passed on, that I had let them down, you know? And as I've said before, I don't want to hurt them, you know, and to have to give them messages like they didn't want to hear what you sent me there to say. Oh my goodness. I don't know that I could handle that. So, driving home one evening through the cemetery, you know, did my usual. I hope you all had a good day, everyone. And got to the house and everything was normal. Went through the process of making dinner, eating dinner, getting ready for bed, yada, 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 all that stuff. And went to bed, and about 3 in the morning, I am awakened from a deep sleep. And as soon as I open my eyes, I see to the right of me, standing next to my side of the bed, a little boy. And you can see through him, and he has almost like a neon blue outline around him. And he's wearing little denim overalls, and he has a haircut that, you know, again, looked very similar to the little boy in Spirits of the Mind. He's got a haircut that looks like you stuck a bowl on his head and cut around the bowl. And he's just poking me in the shoulder with his little finger, just poke, 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 and laughing, like cackling to himself as he's poking me. And the poking hurt. And I got mad because I got my back up because he thought it was so funny. And immediately I knew. I had not seen this little boy before, so I knew where he came from. He had to have come from the cemetery and followed me home. And so I got on his case and I said, "Stop that right now. That is not nice. I am trying to sleep here. And that poor little guy, bless his little heart. You know, sometimes if you wake me out of a deep sleep and I'm cranky pants, I'm going to forget to be kind. I'm just going to be cranky with you. And he just turned around and his little shoulders sagged and he just slowly walked with drooping shoulders and very sad body language into our closet and was gone. And that's still, see, I still feel like a bad human because I was not kind to him at that moment. And, you know, I think I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts, there are times where I'm not perfect and I don't remember to be kind. And I'm still working on that. I'm a work in progress myself. You know, I could give you a million excuses as to being caught off guard and things like that. But the truth of the matter is, I'm a work in progress. And hopefully, the goal is to get better at that and become kinder so that, you know, these little spirits can approach me and, you know, they don't have to get they don't have to get the aggravated version of me. I'll just say that. You know, because he probably, again, looking back on that, because it's a child and, you know, he probably was just excited that he could interact with me. I was something that he could see in his world and he could interact with. So imagine if you are a spirit and you haven't felt physical touch, you haven't been able to touch someone physically for however long, you know, or you tried to touch people physically and they don't recognize that's what's happening. And finally, he finds someone that he can interact with physically. And that just must have been, he probably did want to just do that over and over and over and over and over again. Because he probably missed that sensation. You know, he probably just missed that sensation. So I've always felt bad about that. These poor little boys, you know. So now in this place, my husband now is acknowledging that we have things going on here. And the thing that's got him really acknowledging what's going on here is that we constantly see shadows going from our bedroom across the hall to the bathroom, or across the hall to the laundry room and back. And occasionally we'll have the bathroom door closed and the light on in the bathroom, and he'll be sitting on the couch and he can look down the hall and he'll see shadows moving back and forth in the bathroom. You know? And I mean, to me, it's not surprising because I have told everybody, hey, you can come stay with me, you know, as long as we can cohabitate respectfully. Come on. Bring it in. Bring it in. Let's do this. Let's, you know, give you a place to stay. And, you know, so it doesn't surprise me that the activity has increased significantly. To the point that he can't deny it anymore. But he's a great, great guy. I have to say, he is so patient with it. He really is. He's open to it now. You know, he was never in a negative frame of mind about it. It was just, it didn't, you know, as the rest of us, we've had to experience these things quite a few times before we stop denying it, right? Myself, again, I'm still a work in progress. If I can deny it, that's what I try first. I don't know why. But because it's nothing threatening, there's nothing threatening about it. So I'm not sure why I'm that way. The more of these episodes I do, the less that really makes sense to me that I'm so jumpy about it. But, so we have shadows that we'll see. We have a lot of shadow activity here. I'll be sitting on the couch during the day and I'll see a shadow moving around the kitchen. For the longest time, I just watched the shadow in the kitchen, and the shadow in the kitchen and I never really had any real interaction, and I don't know why that is, but until one day recently, I was standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes, and I kept feeling something really cold on the center of my back, about maybe 2 inches below my shoulder blades and right in the center of my back. I kept feeling something cold. And I finally said, "Could you please stop? I don't like the way that feels. It's making me feel very uncomfortable." And this individual said to me, "I can't. There's something happening in there, and I want to fix it. I have to make sure it doesn't go wrong," she said. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you. Thank you for looking out for me. And then I began to see what she looked like. And she is a small lady about my same height. She has really long white hair, and it's wavy. And she's in a long white nightgown, is what it looks like. More like a dressing gown. The old dressing gowns that you see in, like, I guess, I would imagine you would see them on Downton Abbey or something like that. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's not a show that I watched, but I know it was really popular, and I would assume that period of time they would wear something like this. So puffy sleeves, tied around the wrists with a ruffle around the bottom, comes all the way up to the neck with a ruffle around the neck, and kind of like looks like a sack, baggy, real baggy all around, and hangs down to the floor. That's what she wears, and she has pretty blue eyes. And, again, here we are. This is a spirit that's in my home, and she's watching over me. I don't know. I'm really confused on whether she's connected to me or not. I'm unsure at this point. Sometimes I have to have more interaction with the spirit before I recognize that they're connected to me, before I can feel that familial connection. And I don't know if it's like cousin things or, like maybe fifth cousin, and that's why I don't automatically recognize them. I'm not really sure. I just don't feel that connection. I have a connection with her because she watches over me. But I don't feel a familial connection coming from her. So I'm not sure where I picked up this little roommate from, but she's the bomb. I love her. So, and at that point, I actually had been having heart palpitations. And I was worried about that, so I thought, okay, maybe she's addressing my heart palpitations. Because after a couple of weeks of every morning I'd be at the kitchen sink, loading the dishwasher before I went to work, and I would feel that cold. Here she would come, put her little hand on my back and start doing her thing to help me. And I haven't had heart palpitations for the longest time now. But she still comes. And the funny thing is that I've noticed that my back will start hurting because I'm leaning over the sink. And for some reason, I think it's my height and the way that I'm built, but leaning over the sink doing dishes, it always makes my back hurt. And I have started noticing that the minute my back starts hurting, my sweet little roommate comes over and puts her hand on my back, and my back no longer hurts. So I'm telling you, she is the sweetest thing. So that is one of the experiences I've had here. So I want to share with you an experience that is completely different than my typical experiences with spirits. This one, again, this is one of those curveballs that just shocked me because I'd heard stories about it and I didn't believe it. I was like, that's made for TV stuff. Come on now. But until it happened to me. So that's got me rethinking a lot of things. I do feel like until I have experiences that other people have experienced, I may take some convincing. I kind of am, the jury's still out on that as far as I'm concerned. Once I have an experience, then I can no longer deny it, right? Then I know that these people that say they have these experiences are being legitimate, and it's not just made for TV stuff. This is one of those experiences for me. This is an eye-opener. This is a curveball. And it's happened so recently that I really I haven't been able to work through it as far as what is it. I still feel like we just all take different shapes and forms. Like it's random. I feel like we select the form that we take after. We choose to show ourselves a certain way. But I still don't know about, I've heard people talk about elementals and being somebody that has a deep connection with the out of doors and the woods and things like that. I could see how that might be, but I've just not experienced one myself, so I don't really know. And let me get off of that and back onto this experience that I had. So in bed one night, I'm in a very, very deep sleep. And as usual, immediately awake. And I'm laying there trying to figure out why I'm awake. And I realize that I feel like I'm suffocating. Like I can't catch my breath. And I open my eyes because I just feel this heaviness on me. And I'm trying to figure out why I can't breathe. And maybe 6 inches from my face, I see a dark, undulating mass. It was about, it was bigger than a dinner plate. It was between the size of a dinner plate and a platter. Okay, so between maybe that, maybe I just am using that as a size reference because I'm sitting in my kitchen. I don't know, but it was between the size of a dinner plate and a serving platter. And it had a little tail on it. I mean, I would say it was more like it was shaped sort of like a teardrop. And it was floating in the air. And it was right over my face. And I distinctly felt like it was looking at me. It was trying to figure out what I am. Okay? And immediately, I did not feel threatened by it because, I didn't jump out of bed. I didn't yell and scream. Of course, we know I don't do that anyway. But I didn't jump out of bed. I didn't flail. I didn't wake my husband up, nothing. Because I really felt like this was not a threat to me. And it legitimately was just really curious. And it wasn't deliberately trying to drain my energy or whatever it was doing. It wasn't doing that deliberately. It was just up close and personal, trying to figure out what it was looking at, And I looked at it, and it's looking at me, and it's just studying me. And I said, come on now, I need to be able to get my rest. And I can't have you doing that. I can't have you waking me up because I have a hard time sleeping as it is. I need to be able to get my rest. And it just, I said, you need to go, but you can come back when I'm awake if you want to. And it just slowly but surely pulled away from me and just began to dissipate. And I felt it go. And, this is something that would typically be terrifying, right? And I didn't get those vibes from it at all. So that's one reason that I feel like we show ourselves in certain ways, or we don't have a choice in how we're seen, or something. There is something. I don't have the key to that puzzle yet. I don't have the key to that particular puzzle yet. And I don't know that I will have it in this lifetime. But I did not feel threatened by this at all, even though if it was, they talk about how things like this can drain your energy. And if that's what it was doing, I really got the feeling that it wasn't doing it intentionally, that it was an accident. And as soon as it realized it took the attitude of, oh, I'm sorry, my bad, I didn't realize, and it was just very kind. Its response was very kind. So that's why I say, for us to approach all of this, all of these experiences with the attitude of, oh, it's trying to get me. That's not really fair. That's just not fair. And if you listen to your gut, you can figure out which is good energy and which is bad energy. And the bad energy, you just say, hey, you can't be here. You need to leave. And most of the time, they'll go. If they don't listen to you and they don't go, that's when you call your backup. You call the people that have your back. You call your ancestors and say, hey, this person, this individual won't leave. And I need your help. I need you to make them understand that this is not okay. And they will do it for you. Your ancestors will take care of that for you. They've done it for me countless times. So, you know, on that note, actually, let me bring you to an experience that I had where I had to call my ancestors in. Okay? So we're going to talk about one of my few experiences with a negative energy. It felt very, very negative because it had negative thoughts and negative actions. So that's why I call this a negative energy. It's a whoever this is a very upset individual, and I think maybe just not right as well. But it's definitely someone that is connected to me. And I feel it's a male. And the way that this individual came to be in my house, my apartment, starts in another apartment. To give you some background on this situation, my son lives in the same complex that we live in. And when I first started out doing my podcasting, I was recording over at his place. And eventually I moved it here to our place. But anyway, one day I had gone over to record my podcast. And I had been at his place multiple times and never felt a negative energy over there. Never. It just always feels so nice, and it's my son's place. I told you I like him more than sliced bread. He's better than sliced bread as far as I'm concerned. He's just one of my favorite people on this planet. And I loved being over there. I would chit chat with him a little bit before he went off to work, and then I would sit down and record. And so this day, I had scheduled to go over and record an episode of this podcast. And I walked into his apartment, and as soon as I walked in, I just felt this negativity. Massive, massive negativity. And immediately I started having these weird thoughts, like aggressive thoughts that were not connected to me or to my character in any way. And at first I was concerned, like, oh, I'm a horrible person. Why would I be thinking that? Where did that come from? What's motivating me to have these thoughts, And then I realized, hang on, these aren't your thoughts. You know better than that. These are completely atypical of your character. These are external. This is not internal. This is not internal thinking. It's external thoughts that you are receiving. So immediately I began to feel, once I acknowledged it, I began to feel that someone was yelling at me. Like, 3 inches from my face, the side of my face, just yelling and screaming at me. Just toxic stuff. And I just shook it off, and I tried to focus on my son and focus on the podcast. But the whole entire time I just felt so uncomfortable, just completely uncomfortable, and taken aback by the fact that I was feeling that way in his place when I'd never felt like that before. And trying to figure out what was the difference, to no avail, of course, until I realized, there's a negative spirit here. And, I wondered, he lives on the third floor in another building, and I thought, okay, did that come from below him? Is it one of his neighbors? Is that negativity coming from another apartment? What's going on? So I came back home, and the negative entity followed me and continued harassing me. Continued to the point where I almost felt like, if I was a crier, I would have been crying. I mean, you guys have heard me sniffle a few times, so I do get emotional. I do get emotional about certain things, but I didn't feel like this was something that I was going to let drag me down, if that makes sense. So I just kept trying to fight it off and say, go away. You're not welcome here, and you're not welcome at my son's place. I don't know what your issue is. I don't know why you're here, but you're being hateful. You need to stop. And this person, this individual, and it's a he, would not quit. So I finally had to call my ancestors and say, hey, you guys, I need you. There's this person down here that is being super negative and hateful and yelling and screaming at me. I need you to come and remove them. And like a flash, 3 of them came. And they took this individual, and as they took him away, they were apologizing to me for it. And they were saying to him, you don't come back here again. You're not allowed here. She asked you to leave. You didn't listen. Don't come back here again. Okay, so for a couple days, that was good. I didn't have any issues. And then, lo and behold, if it didn't start up again. And I just, called my ancestors again. Hey, I'm being a tattletale, Hey, you guys, he's back. I don't know what's going on, but he's back. And immediately they were on him. They removed him. Again, saying, we're really sorry. Yeah, he's a problem. We're sorry. So, and while I will say this, they do get frustrated. So it's not, love isn't the only emotion that they feel. They do feel frustration and things like that, but they don't act on it. They, much like myself, try to be very understanding of the situation. Now, do they stand there and try to make deals with these people? No. If I call them for help, then immediately they show up and remove whoever it is, which I've only had to do that twice. And one was for this guy. So, they came and removed him again. And this time it was more of a, don't you come back here. You don't want to find out what's going to happen if you come back here again. She's told you you're not welcome here. So that was the end of that for me, until I got a text message from my son. And we check in with each other every so often, just because not only are we mother and son, and we love each other for that, but we're also friends. So we check in on each other and chit chat every now and again and complain about work situations if there are any going on at the time or whatever. And I'll try to as his friend, give him advice. I don't do motherly advice too much because that pretty much goes over like a lead balloon. So I try to come from, logic, a logical viewpoint, and as if he's talking to a friend. So I got a text message from him, and he told me that he was struggling. And then a little while later, he popped by the apartment and he started talking to me about what he'd been struggling with. And I immediately had a light bulb moment. And I said, "When did this struggle start?" And he told me. And I just was flabbergasted because it was at the same time that I had walked into his apartment and felt that negative entity that is connected to us in there. And he explained to me what he was struggling with, which I won't go into detail on that. When I have my son and my husband join, we'll do an episode where I have them on to tell their stories as well. I'll let him explain that. But, I knew that that's where that entity had come from. So I told him how to handle it. Tell that person they're not welcome, they can't come there and do that, and that they need to leave. And if they don't leave and they don't respect your boundaries that you're setting, call the ancestors to come get them, and they will come get them immediately. So, he began to work on getting rid of that entity from his place. So at that point, I realized that that entity followed me home. I had it removed. It went back to his place. He forced it out. It came back to me, and I had it removed again, and it went back to his place. So it's someone that is connected to us. And why they are angry, I have no idea. I feel it's misplaced. I feel like their anger is misplaced, whoever it is. And hopefully they can work through that and figure out the truth behind whatever is making them so angry, or come to terms with whatever it is. I don't know. I'm assuming that, you still struggle with denial and things like that if you don't move on to that other place, So eventually he was able to get rid of it. And it does take strength, and if you are in a situation like that, don't just immediately don't do what I did. Don't immediately jump to, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person. Recognize that may be coming from somewhere else. It's most likely coming from external. And get your ancestors on it to remove it. And they will do it. They will do it. I promise you. And it might take, you might have to do it several times before you completely get rid of it. But you will be successful. You really will. I know it's so hard. Oh my goodness. My son, he's just now coming into his spiritual awakening. And sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes it's a struggle for him. And, it's not easy. Even for me at my age, it's not easy. And I've been dealing with this my whole life. Because there's so many complications that go with this, isn't there? I mean, you have the complications of what do you tell your friends and family? Do you even tell your friends and family? You have the complications of, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Why am I seeing what I'm seeing? Who is what I'm seeing? You know, all of these complications and all of these things that send your anxiety through the roof because you walk around the corner and bam, there's a person there. Or you turn and look over your shoulder when you're spying on the parking lot down below you and there's somebody spying with you, you know. So or you move into a new place and you hear your drawers and doors opening and closing, you know. Or like with me here too, I'll open the bathroom door and there will be a black mass right in front of me. And I'll have to say, excuse me, please. You know, it's like, you can get back in the bathroom now. I'm sorry. I really needed it, you know? So it's enough to make you question your sanity. It really is. But just have faith in yourself. Have faith in yourself. Okay? Because if I can do it, you can do it for sure. And just know that there is at least one other person there. I suspect there's a lot of us out here that are, you know, experiencing these things and keeping them hidden because we don't know how we're going to appear to other people if we just randomly start saying, hey, your grandmother contacted me and she wants me to tell you don't sign that paperwork, or, you know, or if we just say, oh man, I didn't sleep very well last night at all because I had this black mass draining my energy. Whew. You know, so I'm sorry I'm so tired today. Like, how would we sound if we just opened up to people like that, right? So, but, you know, just know you're not crazy. Because I'm not crazy. And if I'm not crazy, you're not crazy. And we'll be okay. We will be okay. But I do feel like we need to start being supportive of each other. You know, those of us that are out here that are having these experiences and are being, you know, our families can't grasp it because they don't have the gift. I think we need to support each other, you know. And right now I am with all of you guys, everybody that's going through all this stuff. I'm giving you a virtual group hug right now. And I think that we just really need to be there for each other through this process and help the younger people, you know, so that they don't think they're crazy and so that they don't have to figure it out by themselves. I know I keep mentioning figuring this out by yourself, but with all the media that we have today and everyone that is sharing their experiences, you know, there is so much of this going on. And for someone to feel like they're alone in it, I feel like, you know, it's my responsibility to let you know you're not alone. You are not alone. There are a lot of us out there. A lot of us. You're not alone. You're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you if you're having visions and, you know, you're seeing spirits. There's nothing wrong with you. You know, and why it happens to, why there are those of us who, I don't know if we're what I would call accepting. Because if you listen to my podcasts, while on one hand I'm accepting of it, on the other I'm like, oh no, that's too much. Right? Like, oh, no, no, ghost hunting? Oh, no, that's not for me. That would just be too much. I would have too many spirits trying to talk to me. Or, mediumship? Oh, no, no, that's not for me. So while on one hand I'm accepting of it, on the other I'm like, oh no. But it's not because I'm denying that there's a need for those things, or that I have a gift that could lead me in that direction. The reason that I am saying, no, that's not for me, is because that's me recognizing my limitations. And young people, think about that too. Learn to recognize where your limitations are, and don't let peer pressure push you into changing that, because only you know how much of it you can handle. Okay? Because if it does become overwhelming, I could see us losing our minds over it, So just you figure out how much of it you can handle, and don't let anyone else try to push you past that, okay? Be strong. Be strong. Get your back up. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Spirit Chats with Kat. I really appreciate you all joining me. I do have quite a lot more experiences to share with you, but we are beginning to wrap things up a little bit. We may have only 2, possibly 3 more episodes before the end of this podcast, and before you all get to post your questions, and I'll do an episode on just trying to answer your questions or considering your thoughts. That's something else too. If you just have thoughts that you want to share with me as far as what could possibly be happening, I'm open to that as well. The only thing that I can say I won't be open to is if you try to tell me I'm losing my mind, or if you try to tell me that there's a special place for me and it's not heaven. While I understand why you would think that way, I want this to be a more positive experience than that for people who need it. So hopefully we can have a positive conversation on things. I'm open to, you guys, to whatever your views might be on certain things. Even, if you want to diagnose me with explain to me why I am still jumpy about this and never expecting to see spirits when I see them all the time. I'm totally open to that. So if you guys want to, give me your opinions on why that is as well, I'd love to see that, because it may shed some light on it for me. And just so you guys know too, as you know, I started out this podcast to help other people like me. But even through the course of, going through these recordings and looking at my own experiences, just talking about it to you has helped me tremendously understand myself, understand the situations, and also get excited about this, feel like this is less of a curse and more of a gift, So while I've been trying to reach out and give to you all without knowing it, you've been giving to me as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. That has been an unexpected gift, and I appreciate that so much. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for my next episode. I appreciate you all. Take care.